Okay, so, we always love getting your suggestions for these deep dives. And the stuff you sent this time around is really fascinating. It's all about how to, stand out when there's just so much noise out there.
Yeah, it is a crowded marketplace, isn't it? Everyone's vying for attention.
Exactly. And, it's not enough to just be good anymore. You really have to cut through all that clutter.
So we're diving into this whole concept of the purple cow. It's about being remarkable in a world that's full of the ordinary.
And the material you sent really digs into how the old ways of marketing just aren't as effective as they used to be. It's not enough to just have a good product and tell people about it.
Right. It used to be like a formula. Make a good product, price it right, put some ads out there in newspapers, on TV, and things would just happen.
But now, it feels like you could do all of that perfectly
Right.
and still just vanish.
And one of the things that really struck me was the example of Facebook's Poke app. You remember that?
Yeah, I vaguely remember it. What was the deal with that again?
So from a features standpoint, from an integration standpoint, it was actually supposed to be a really good app. Some even argued it was better than its competitor at the time.
Oh, are you talking about Snapchat?
Exactly, Snapchat. And Poke, by all accounts, it should have been a slam dunk.
But it just never really caught on, right?
Right, it totally flopped.
Oh.
And the material you sent really points to the difference in how they were marketed, that initial outreach.
So it's not just about the product itself. It's how you present it to the world. That first impression is everything.
And what's even more interesting is that the sources point out that the success of traditional advertising in the past is kind of what led to its downfall today.
Makes sense. I mean, back then it was groundbreaking.
Yeah.
But because it worked so well, everybody started doing it.
Exactly. And it created this huge wave of advertising, just an overload.
Like constant noise.
Mm-hmm.
It's no wonder people started tuning it out.
And it's interesting because there's some research in here that shows that younger people actually see those traditional ads as interruptions.
Yeah, I mean, I get that I use ad blockers whenever I can, and I know a lot of people do.
It's a complete shift. And it's made those old methods less and less effective.
So this purple cow idea, it's all about standing out from that sea of sameness.
Think of it like a field full of brown cows, and then suddenly you see a purple one.
You definitely notice that.
Yeah.
It's about being so remarkable that people can't help but pay attention.
And that really connects to this broader shift from trying to interrupt people with your message to attracting the people who are actually seeking you out.
Which brings us to the whole idea of understanding your audience, which it sounds like goes way deeper than just basic demographics.
Well, it's not just about age or location. It's about understanding how different types of people approach new things.
And the material you sent actually breaks this down into three main groups.
You've got your innovators and your early adopters. These are the folks who are always on the lookout for the next big thing. They want to be the first to try it out.
Like those people who wait in line for the new iPhone the second it comes out.
Exactly. They're driven by novelty and the excitement of being ahead of the curve.
So they're the ones you really want to target first.
Right.
They're crucial because they can influence the rest of the market. If they love your product, they become your advocates.
Okay, so that's group one. Then there's the majority, right? The folks who aren't necessarily chasing the newest thing, but they're open to trying something new if it makes sense for them.
Yeah, they're more practical.
Yeah.
They need to see a clear benefit before they make a change. They're not as easily swayed by hype.
And then you have your laggards, or adapters, I think the material called them.
These are the people who resist change until it's absolutely necessary. They're comfortable with what they know.
Like my parents. They finally got smartphones like last year.
Exactly.
Yep.
The example in the material was the transition from cassette tapes to CDs. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. People held onto those tapes for so long.
Until they basically had no choice. And it's fascinating because the sources point out that a lot of traditional advertising is actually aimed at the majority, even though they're the ones who are the least likely to be swayed by it.
Right, because they're not actively seeking out new products or services. They're content with what they have.
So it's almost like you're wasting your efforts trying to convince them through traditional advertising.
It's not as effective. And that's why this whole idea of word-of-mouth marketing is becoming so important again.
Makes sense. I mean, people trust recommendations from their friends and family more than some random ad.
It's all about social proof. And that's why targeting those innovators and early adopters is so crucial.
Because if you can win them over, they'll do the marketing for you.
Their enthusiasm and their recommendations will reach the majority much more effectively than any ad campaign could.
So it's a completely different way of thinking about marketing.
It's about creating something so remarkable, so inherently desirable, that people can't help but talk about it.
Which brings us to the power of being remarkable. The material really emphasizes that you shouldn't just be creating advertising that sells a product. You should be creating a product that sells itself.
That's a really important distinction. It's about baking that remarkability into the product's DNA right from the very start.
Not just adding it on as an afterthought during the marketing phase.
Exactly. And it's not about just being slightly better than the competition.
It's about offering something truly unique, something that provides a significant leap forward in value.
The example that really stuck with me was the Apple iPad.
Yeah, I remember when that came out. It was revolutionary.
It wasn't just a bigger iPhone or a thinner laptop.
It was a completely new category of device.
Yeah.
And it offered this level of convenience and connectivity that people hadn't really experienced before.
That's what being remarkable is all about. It's about filling a gap in the market in a truly innovative way.
So you've got your purple cow. You've created this amazing product that people are starting to talk about. But the material suggests there are ways to make it even more remarkable, even more memorable.
To really amplify that initial buzz, to make your purple cow even purpler, so to speak.
And they actually list 5 specific methods to achieve this. The first one is being worthy of memory or parody.
This is about creating something so over the top, so unique, so maybe even intentionally funny or awkward that people just can't forget it.
Like those old ShamWow commercials.
Exactly. Vince Offer's delivery was so enthusiastic, so out there that it became a cultural phenomenon.
People were quoting those lines everywhere. It definitely made the product memorable.
Whether you loved it or hated it, you remembered it, and that's the point.
Then there's the power of a great slogan. A short, catchy phrase that instantly communicates what your product is all about.
Like Nike's Just Do It or McDonald's I'm Loving It.
Those slogans are so ingrained in our culture, they become synonymous with the brand.
It's about creating a mental shortcut for your value proposition.
The third method is all about selling more to your existing fans.
Leveraging that loyal customer base, the people who already love what you do.
You can offer them exclusive products or promotions or create campaigns specifically targeted at them.
It's about nurturing those relationships. And it makes sense because those loyal customers are the ones who are most likely to spread the word.
They're your biggest advocates. The fourth method is making your product collectible.
This taps into that psychology of scarcity and desire.
Like limited edition sneakers or special edition video games.
It creates a sense of urgency and excitement.
Yeah.
And it can attract people who might not have been interested in the regular version of the product.
And the fifth method is finding and embracing hobbyists.
If your product relates to a particular hobby or passion, you need to connect to those communities.
Because hobbyists are often early adopters and they're incredibly influential within their niche.
They're passionate and they're always looking for new things that will enhance their hobby.
But the material makes it really clear that these methods are all about enhancing an already remarkable product.
They're not magic bullets. They can't transform a boring product into a purple cow.
It's like putting lipstick on a pig. It's still a pig.
You need to have that fundamental remarkability there first, and then these methods can help you amplify it.
Now, the idea of creating something truly different and putting it out there can feel risky.
It's natural to worry about criticism or not being understood.
But the material actually argues that the bigger risk is being unremarkable and fading into obscurity.
It's like that restaurant analogy they use. Would you rather be the place with the bland but acceptable food?
Or the place that offers a truly unique and memorable dining experience.
Being unremarkable is a recipe for stagnation.
And ultimately, failure. In the long run, you'll be forgotten.
So for anyone in a leadership position, the message is clear. You need to prioritize understanding your target market and creating something truly exceptional for them.
Don't be afraid to take risks. Don't let the fear of criticism hold you back.
And for those who aren't in charge, it's about making that case to leadership.
Showing them that the real risk is not in trying to stand out, but in being too afraid to even try.
Because complacency is the ultimate killer.
So let's say you've done it. You've created your purple cow. You've taken those risks and it's starting to pay off. What's next?
The material outlines 3 key actions to sustain that success.
First, you need to focus on growing your company, building a strong brand around that successful product.
And expanding strategically with new offerings that complement your initial offering.
It's about leveraging that initial success to create something even bigger and more sustainable.
Then there's what they call milking the purple cow.
Which basically means maximizing the profitability of your product.
Using smart marketing, efficient sales processes, and streamlined production.
You need to generate the resources to fuel future growth and innovation.
And that brings us to the most crucial step, creating the next purple cow.
Because even the most groundbreaking product will eventually become less remarkable over time.
The market evolves, competitors emerge, You can't just rest on your laurels.
You need to constantly be innovating, surprising your audience.
And that next purple cow can't just be a minor improvement. It needs to be another significant leap forward.
The material gives some pretty sobering examples of companies that failed to keep innovating.
They had that initial success, but then they became complacent, and they eventually disappeared.
It's a reminder that innovation is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing process.
You need to be constantly pushing the boundaries, challenging the status quo.
So for our listener, the takeaway here is clear. In a world that's overflowing with choices, the only way to truly succeed is to be remarkable, to create your own purple cow.
It's about understanding your audience, focusing on those innovators and early adopters, and being willing to take risks.
Because the alternative blending in is simply not an option anymore.
It's a recipe for being ignored and ultimately forgotten.
So as you think about your own work, your own projects, your own endeavors, ask yourself this. What's one small but significant change you could make to be a little bit more purple?
What's one thing you could do to stand out from the crowd? And maybe even more importantly, what are the risks of not doing anything at all?
It's something to really think about. Because in this noisy world, being remarkable is no longer a choice. It's a necessity.
You have to give people a reason to stop and pay attention, to give them something to remember.
And that's what this whole purple cow idea is all about. It's about being unforgettable.
And making a lasting impact.
Food for thought, right?
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you found it as interesting as we did.
And we hope it inspires you to create your own purple cow.
Until next time, stay remarkable.
Keep pushing those boundaries.